I'm sorry for that spontaneous.
That's all right. I gave you a big build-up, you know. So my two questions are, one, how are you going to fill O'Reilly's radio shoes? And two, with the new budget, where everything's on the books, where you can see everything, at least more than you have been in the past. How do you?
That's because there's more there.
Right. Well, you know, but the whole war, all the expenses for the war in Iraq now on paper, they haven't been in the past. They were off the books.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? And when you were in the Senate, would that have been more helpful to you in making some of these judgments?
Well, no, because I knew what the deal was, whether it was in the budget or not. The budgets have been in large part fictitious for a long time. And I am very much for putting military expenditure in the budget. This supplemental stuff is a cover-up business that doesn't meet the laugh test, I think, a lot of times. So I think it's progress in that direction. But, you know, I don't think that Obama and his folks want to talk about the issue of transparency all that much. I mean, the budget is fraught with a sleight of hand, not the least of which is what I already mentioned, that is the budget assumptions. Again, he's not the first guy to make unrealistic assumptions, but his whole house of cards is built upon ridiculous assumptions in terms of growth. On the one hand, he wants to tell us, in effect, that the world's coming to an end, therefore we got to do exactly as he says. On the other hand, if you look at the budget, he's predicting that next year we're going to be out of the recession. And we're going to have tremendous growth, and we're going to have growth after that even greater, and growth after that even greater, twice what the CBO estimates, which only is the only thing that can justify his budget without the astronomical trillions in deficits that we know that are going to occur. But by the time they do occur, he will have his he'll have his programs through it in his estimation. So it's transparent, but it's transparent in its absurdity in many respects also.
And just two other quick things, I'm sorry. I followed you for a long time and know that you read Atlas Shrugged when you worked as a hotel clerk at a desk many, many years ago. Where I remember that from, I'm not sure. But one is, do you think there's merit in trying to tackle some of these problems that this country has not confronted for a very long period of time? And the other is, I am fascinated by the fact that of all the mediums you've participated in, acting and politics and everything, you've chosen to do radio. Yeah. And I find that very interesting.
Well, I think that there are a lot of reasons for that. I have done a lot of things, and it doesn't mean that I can't still do some other things. And I mean, it's 2 hours a day. I mean, it's a big challenge and all of that, and there's certainly more than 2 hours a day that goes into it. But we've been kind of going into it for a long time. I mean, we're not going to have to start from scratch in order to have things to talk about that we're very concerned about. But it comes from I had gotten to be kind of a go-to character actor. I fell into the acting business by accident. They made a movie about a case of mine. I was a lawyer and played myself in the movie, and I started getting a part of it. Once finally got an agent, and you know, a couple of times a year I'd get pretty good stuff. I got to work with Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro and Tom Cruise and a lot of the biggies and so all of that. A life that a lot of people would have thought would have been pretty good. You know, you just kind of settled into that. But I ran for the Senate and started from scratch. Started 20 points down to do what was necessary to win. Ran again. And of course, went back and ran for president this last time. That's all about being concerned about your country, being concerned about the direction it's going in, and asking yourself, how many people really have a chance to do something about it? I have strived in everything that I've done to try to develop a certain amount of credibility, whether you agree with me or not. I think the most important thing that a citizen can do, and certainly anybody that aspires for office can do, is to have a core belief about what's good for their country and not invest so much personally in success that you can't tell the truth about it. This is another one of those opportunities. I'm not going to run for president again, but I do want to have my pulpit, just like all of us do, just like the people in this room do. And being able to sit there, especially with Jerry, who's been on the trail with me and a lot of this stuff, as you know, she probably did more on talk radio than I did during the campaign. We were talking about you guys can, bring the dinner table, to the airwaves. And I said, does that mean I get a chance to talk more? And they said, but seriously, folks, doing this together and talking about what we want to talk about at this particular time, not just to berate Obama. I would love, if he's serious about doing something really about entitlements, I'm going to be his biggest supporter. If he does it in a way that's really reform. What I fear is entitlement reform to him means national health care under by his definition. And you're not going to have entitlement reform unless you do some tough stuff. I want to see, we're going to have to raise the retirement age and a few things like that. And I want to see him make some of those tough decisions for the first time in his professional career. And when and if he does, I'll be supporting him. And if he's not, he's going to have a hard time.
Yeah, the fact that he's even thinking about trying to reform Social Security is novel for any politician.
Well, it was George Bush.
For a lot of them, it is.
George W. Bush did.
For a Democrat, it is.
Well, yeah, you're very right about that. No, it's tough. It's hard. I mean, it's an endemic problem for a reason. Mm-hmm. The ones that we've had for a long time, the reason is they're hard. They're tough. You do have to risk some political capital. You don't risk political capital when you get up and say, I'm going to send money to 98% of the American people. That doesn't demonstrate courage, leadership, or toughness.
But this may be the time to have the debate on Social Security, on health care, on a lot of these other things.
It very well may be. Yeah. Here's my hope. It very well may be that only a Democratic president can get it done.
Maybe.
Nixon goes to China. And then it's going to be up to Republicans to say, to avoid doing what the Democrats have always done. And that is saying to themselves, obviously this tsunami is facing us. Obviously our kids and grandkids can't pass on this debt that we're handing to them. If we kept books the way we made businesses keep books in this country, we'd recognize about a $50 trillion shortfall already. Obviously we know all this, but my goodness, this is a slam dunk political issue. And there's an election in 2 years, or now it's 1 year or 6 months from now. What are we going to do? My interest or future generations, which don't have a seat at the table, their interest. That's an easy choice for most politicians. It's their own interest, time and time again. And that's why when Bush, reared his head up and started talking about Social Security and so forth, it's still the third rail in most cases, and it's probably going to take a Democrat or an absolute disaster, a recognized disaster of a kind that makes this one look small in order for it to happen. But I would look for one. When the president talks about education reform, when he said the other night that education reform begins in the home, I thought to myself, hallelujah. I mean, nothing is ever more true. It's something I try to talk about, and everybody's got these grandiose plans and where to put the money and shifting things around, and even freedom of choice and so forth. You can have the best policies in the world, but if we're producing a generation of kids that have no discipline, no leadership, no morals, no family, they're not going to learn, and we turn over those responsibilities to a stranger, a teacher, to do all that, and that's really what we've been doing. And when he said that, but again, if what he's got in mind, what I suspect he's got in mind, is taking a budget that George W. Bush doubled and doubling again. And you see, my goodness, if nothing else, we see the results that kind of attitude, plus his friends are doing in Congress, the president's friends in Congress as we speak, are trying their best to deprive the Washington, D.C. school children of vouchers. Because